Hi, this is Marty Smith, and I'm going to be making a training video again for PokerSwat.com. Okay, this video is the same as the last one I've done. In that again, I'm going to be using footage of one of our members playing and commenting on his play rather than playing myself. Okay, this is the same guy I used before. Who I'll be referring to as J Cage, which is his name on PokerSwat. As you can see, he wants to remain anonymous on Full Tilt here, and he's blacked out his name. It's just really this footage just kind of takes up where the last video left off. I'm going to be using the last half hour, 40 minutes of what he sent in just to do the second video. So again, table 1 here is in the top left, table 2 top right, table 3 bottom left, and table 4 bottom right, just so it's easy for you to follow what table I'm talking about. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and play it back, and same as last time, just talk about the hands generally, and try and give any advice if there's anything that I think maybe you should have done differently, and just go through some of the hands even that are played correctly, but hands that illustrate points that are important in PLO, and maybe good to help reinforce some of those. So I'm going to get things going here. The first hand I wanted to talk about is on table 4, down in the bottom right here. It's standard enough pre-flop. This guy in seat 4 limps. The cut-off raises, and we call with 4, 5, 7, 9 double suited. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Flop bottom pair and the 7 high flush draw, which isn't great, it has to be said, and we're not even sure if our flush draw is live, even though we do hit it. So I imagine the plan on the flop is to check fold, at least certainly check fold a pot size bet. As it happens, we get to see the turn for free, and you could just check there. I'm trying to see the river cheaply, but our guy decides to bet, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. The other two guys have both shown weakness on the flop, and unless someone was either slow playing the flop or has made a straight on the turn, then even if we may be ahead, but even if we're not ahead, there's a lot of hands that are better than ours that we can actually get people to pass. It's not inconceivable someone could even pass the S7. Certainly could pass Jack 9 or Jack 7, hands like that. So really, it's kind of like a semi bluff, even though there is a chance that our 2 pairs winning. We're looking to take the pot down there and then, and if we do get called, then our hand does have some value, I suppose. So we called him one spot anyway, and the pre-flop raiser passes. We've hit one of our outs in the river. We're not sure if we were winning. The pot before that was 7-9, and we're not sure if our flush draw is live. But we've improved in the river anyway. We've made a flush, and I think you're probably winning here most of the time. But I don't think it's a spot to bet. You could bet and you may get called by a straight, but it's I wouldn't say it's a situation where you only get called by a better hand. But I think most of the time, if you get called in the river there, your opponent's going to have a higher flush. He may not even come pay you off with a straight. So I definitely think check calling is a better option than betting out here. So we check anyway. Our opponent bets around about half the pot, and we call, which I think is sensible. The whole reason I'm showing you this hand, it's been standard enough up until now from one point of view, but I actually wanted to criticise one of our opponents here a little bit. He's called with the same hand as us in the flop, or sorry, in the turn. He's the same hand as us. He's bottom 2 pair. He's also got an open-ended straight draw, and he completes a straight on the river. However, it's also a card that puts a 3rd spade on the board. I was saying just a second ago about how it's not a good idea to make a bet whenever you're only going to get called by a better hand, and I think that's the situation from our opponent's point of view. On the turn, either we've made a total bluff, in which case we're not going to call the river, or we bet with maybe 2 pair or a set or something like that. In which case we're probably not going to call the river either, because it's such a scurry board. And if we don't have one of those hands, then we have either a straight, in which case I suppose we could have a smaller straight and he could be winning. But it's much more likely that if we were drawn, we just made the flush in the river. But I do think I think his bet there only gets called by a flush or possibly the same straight as him, and obviously that's not a good situation to be betting. He does have a hand that's probably that does have some value. He doesn't have to bluff at the pot. He could easily check it down, and there's a fair chance he'll win. But I just think his bet on the river there is all wrong. It doesn't really accomplish anything. Just going to wind the video forward. Okay, there's another couple of hands here. This is reasonably standard. There's been one limper and we make a raise on the button with a double paired hand. That's fair enough. And on table 3 here in the bottom left, a pretty nice starting hand, 9-10 Queen King, one suit. It's passed around to us in the small blind, and we make a standard enough raise. Our opponent calls. It's fairly straightforward again. Back on table 4 here, ace ace 4 flop, and we make a continuation bet. We actually get check raised, and obviously it's not really a spot to be to be 4 betting a bluff or anything. So we would just give this one up on table 4. Table 3, we flop the nuts, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We don't have any redraw, but that's not that important. And in a heads up pot, it still seems like quite a good situation for us. We've bet the flop here and got called, and nothing's changed at all on the turn. And rather than bet again, our guy JK decides to check. I'm not sure if that's right or wrong. I mean, I think it's there's certainly be nothing wrong with just firing out another pot size bet, but I don't think there's anything wrong with mixing your play up occasionally and checking sometimes as well, which is what we've done here. And I think maybe probably the deciding factor for me would be on as to whether a check or whether a bet would be the type of opponent that we're up against. If he is an aggressive opponent and he's likely to bluff whenever you show weakness, then checking's definitely a good idea. Especially since we've raised before the flop, that flop doesn't necessarily suit a hand that's big enough to raise pre-flop. We could easily have missed that flop with aces or kings or a few higher cards. Then there's actually a chance that he's just floating us on the flop to bluff the turn. So yeah, I definitely think that checking's definitely a good move some of the time there. And like I say, it would probably depend on the tendencies of the opponent that I was up against. As it happened in this case, it doesn't work out. Our opponent checks, and nothing changes in the river, and we make a small value bet. Well, make a pot size value bet actually. I think that's sensible enough too. I think if our opponent has 2 pairs, something like that, he's just going to check it down. Whereas he may call a pot size bet because it can look like a missed flush or something from us. Another couple of reasonably nice hands here. Certainly in table 4, Jack, Queen, King, 7, double suited. Standard enough raise on the button. Sorry, on the cutoff. The button passes. Which is good for us because it means we're going to play the rest of the hand out of position, or in position. Sorry. You could make a continuation bet here, but it's not a flop that's really supposed to suit us. We're the pre-flop raiser. That's pretty low flop. I think people could be setting you up for a check raise here in the flop, so I would be inclined to just actually check that flop and take a free card, because there are a lot of nice cards that would get hit on the turn. As it happens, first seat bets out, and maybe we do have a live 2 pair draw, but it's he could have flopped the straight or flopped the set or something like that, and even if you do have some live outs, you don't want to be drawn, to be calling a full size pot bet to draw to some outs when you're not sure whether they're live or not. So I think that's sensible enough just to give the pot up. Okay, I've winded forward to a couple of hands here. Well, I suppose the entry and die, they might kind of look very similar, but I just wanted, the reason I'm going to show you them is just to kind of highlight the differences in each situation. And they're both situations where we flop a wraparound straight draw. This is the first hand here on table 4. Okay, we've got 6, 7, 8 Jack double suited pre-flop, and the flop, there's a bit of action pre-flop. I can't remember who raised. I think it was our opponent here. Bit of action anyway, and the flop comes 10-9-2 with 2 spades. Okay, that's we've got what's known as a wrapper and straight draw here, in that any 6, 7, 8, Jack or Queen will make us a straight. So that's actually a 15 card draw, which is actually it's a 16 card draw. Sorry. You got 3 6s, 3 7s, 3 8s, 3 Jacks, and 4 Queens. Well, that seems pretty good. I mean, if you know all your outs are live, then 16 cards and 2 goes of making it is it's a pretty big hand. I think if you're up against like ace and nothing else there, you're even maybe a very slight favourite. So in one hand it is quite a big draw, but something you've got to take into account is that in this situation, there's actually only, even though you 16 cards that'll make a straight, there's only 4 cards that'll actually make you the nuts. And that's a 6 of clubs, 7 of clubs, 6 of diamonds, and 7 of diamonds. Any other cards that make you the straight are also gonna, they're not going to be for the nuts. There's going to be a potentially higher hand out there. That's not to say that you still won't be winning, but it's just something you have to be a little bit wary of. And as well as that, we're out of position here. So we're going to be a bit vulnerable on the turn if the nuts does change. If we make our straight and it puts up a spade as well, and we're acting first, that's a big disadvantage. We can easily get bluffed off a hand, even if we do have the best hand. So that's why I think it makes sense just to play this hand a little bit more slowly, which is what we do here. Certainly, definitely a spot for calling, I think, but it's not a spot for betting out or semi-bluffing, I don't think. 5 of hearts is a pretty good card for us. It gives us some more outs, assuming they're live. And again, it's definitely a spot for check calling again, I think. As it turns out, we get to see the river for free, and we've missed completely. Situation like that, we have to decide whether it's a good idea to bluff or not. I don't think that ace is a great card for us to bluff. I think it's quite likely to maybe hit our opponent here. I think he probably calls us there with 2 pair, maybe even just an ace. Could easily put us in a draw. Okay, I said I wanted to contrast it with another hand, and this is the hand actually on table 3. Again, there's been a small pre-flop raise by this guy to our right, and we've called with 2, 5, 7, 8 double suited. To be honest, I would probably pass that hand pre-flop. I know it's double suited, but it still needs a pretty specific flop if you're going to hit the flop hard. But anyway, we've called, and again we flopped her up. We get 5, 7, 8 on a 4, 6 board, backdoor diamonds, which doesn't count for much, but it does count for a little bit. Now the last time we had actually 16 cards for the nuts. It's kind of a strange situation. This time we only have we got 3 5s, 3 7s, 3 8s, 4 3s. So that's it. We've got a 13 card wrap. So we don't have as much cards as the last time. But I think this is a better situation to be in, even though we've less cards to make the straight. More of them are going to make us the nut straight, which means we're going to be more confident about our hand on later straights if we do make it. And as well as that, it's a rainbow flop. We don't need to worry about making the straight and a flush appearing at the same time. Well, not yet anyway. It depends what the turn card is, I suppose. But another consideration is we have position on the other 2 guys that are in the pot. They're going to have to act first, which gives a little bit more value to our hand here. So yeah, even though we've actually less cards that are going to make us a straight, I think this is a better situation to be in than the previous example. And obviously our player Jay Cage agrees with me here. The last time he just check called and played his hand quite passively. This time he's taken the initiative and it's been checked round to him, and he fires out a pot size semi bluff. I think that's quite sensible. We get called by one of our opponents, and the turn is a 9, which is, well, it does give us some more cards to make a straight. Now a 10 is going to make a straight for us as well, even though it won't be the nuts. But it also puts up 2 clubs, 8 clubs of spades, or 2 clubs, yeah. So now we do have to worry now about making the straight and the flush appearing at the same time. So you got to make a decision whether to fire a second barrel there, or whether just to take the free river. kind of depends how you feel about the situation at the time and what you know about your opponent. I think most of the time I'd probably just try and see the river for free there. You can always maybe bluff the pot on the river if you miss. And as well as that, you have position. If you can make it straight, you might get lucky and maybe he'll bet out into you, and you might be able to win a nice pot. Like I say, our guy decides to check and take the free river. I think our opponent bets out here. Could easily be a bluff. There's no reason why he should have backdoored a flush. But he could have backdoored a flush. Obviously we can't call. We don't even have a pair. If we think our opponent's bluffing, we've still got a rebluff to win the pot, so we're going to have to invest quite a lot. And if he has backdoor flush, which is possible, he's definitely going to call. I think, even if it's not a big flush. So, probably sensible enough, I think, to give the pot up here. We haven't invested too much in it anyway. Okay, again, I've went forward a little bit. Not a couple of hands. I just wanted to say a couple of things about table 4 here. First seat, min raises the $1. It's called the guy in seat number 4, and our guy J Cage decides to call here with King Queen 6-3. I think for someone that kind of did seem quite strict with hand selection. I think that's a very strange decision to want to play that hand. Even though you are on the button and you position the rest of the table, which is a big advantage, I still don't see any value at all in playing a hand like this in a multi-way pot. You need such a specific flop. If you're going to want to put a lot of money in after the flop. So yeah, the hand's a bit of a non-event after that. We just kind of check pass here. I think the flop's checked and then we check pass in the turn. But I just don't really see the value in playing that hand, even though we are in the button. And in J Cage's defense, I think normally he doesn't play hands like this. Maybe he's just concentrating on one of the other tables and kind of clicked call without thinking. Okay, there's a hand developing here in table 3, which ends up quite a big pot. We've raised pre-flop with the kind of sort of rundown hand, I suppose, even though there's a few gumps there. 5-6, Jack 9, double suited. It is a hand you can catch a reasonable flop with. And we've been re-raised here by the guy on the button. He's playing $40-something. So I think this is a very good spot for us to take a flop. This is a hand that plays well. Plays very well against aces. I suppose we're going to have a good idea where we are on the flop. Not that he has to have aces, of course, but I still think it's worth seeing a flop with this kind of hand. And we flopped a really good, really good hand here. We have to be pretty sure we're ahead on this flop. There's not too many hands that our opponent can have that have us beat here if he wants to re-raise pre-flop. Normally when someone re-raises a pre-flop, they either have a big pocket pair, usually aces or sometimes kings, or they'll have a kind of rundown hand, 9-10, Jack Queen, something like that. It's highly unlikely that he will have re-raised pre-flop with 2 jacks in his hand, or 2 5s, or 2 2s. Not impossible, he could have kings and 2s, or aces and 2s, or aces and 5s, something like that. But it's highly unlikely, and we have to assume that we're winning at this point. That's not to say we don't know how far ahead we are, even if we are winning. If he has aces with a suited ace of diamonds, then it's pretty much a coin flip. I think we're very marginal favourites, but it's to all intents and purposes it's a flip. But I think this is a sort of flop that he probably would go ahead and bet even if he just has ace, because it looks like a pretty safe flop for him. It's unlikely from his point of view that we flop 2 pair there as well. So even with just dry aces, he's probably going to go ahead and bet there. So we want to give him a chance to bet, I think, and then check raise. You can pretty much get it all in if we check raise him here. And with hopefully he just has ace and nothing else. But worst case scenario, I think, is probably that he has aces and a flush draw. And like I say, that is probably the worst case scenario here, and even then we're going to be flipping. So we check, he goes ahead and bets. That he's quite entitled to on that flop. And we're able to not quite get them all in, but close enough, and he goes ahead and sticks the rest in. And as I talked about a second ago, it turns out we are flipping. But he probably would have put it all in with aces there on that kind of flop, because it looks like a it looks like we were more likely to have a draw when we check raise there, so I think he probably would have taken us on with dry aces, considering his stack as well. He wasn't that deep, so it's definitely a good spot to check raise, and it's a bit of a cold deck, I suppose, in this situation. All the money goes in as it should do, and we get lucky this time. Our hand holds up. Okay, I've went forward a few hands again. There's a few hands coming up here in quick succession that are all a little bit interesting anyway. More so this first one on table 3 here. It's kind of had me baffled a little bit. I'm not sure what to make of our opponent's play here. King, King, Jack, Jack. Pretty nice starting hand. We've made a standard enough pot size raise in first position. And this guy directly behind us decides to re-raise the pot again. And if you remember, this is a guy who we got into a pot with just a couple of minutes ago. Where again he'd re-raised his pre-flop, and it turned out that he did have aces that time. Of course, we flopped 2 pair and ended up winning a nice pot. But anyway, this same guy's 3-bet us again pre-flop. Same kind of situation. And just he had aces the last time doesn't necessarily mean he has aces again this time. I'm sure he will re-raise with some other hands that kind of balance his range up a bit. I'm sure he'll raise with run-down hands or kings or double paired hands, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a fair chance he has aces, but you can't just kind of jump to that conclusion and kind of play the rest of the hand out as if your opponent definitely has aces. You have to be aware that he could have some other hands as well. All in all, I think it's just sensible to just call pre-flop here. If he was a little bit shorter, I would probably just stick it all in and hope that our kings are winning. But he still has a reasonable amount behind, and I wouldn't want to put all the money in with kings pre-flop, because even though we've got a nice starting hand, kings and jacks, it's not the sort of hand that you want to play for all your chips against the ace, because it doesn't play that well against the ace, of course. The flop's checked by both of us, and it is a flop that's kind of, it's probably going to worry our opponent if he does have aces. If he's raised pre-flop with some kind of rundown hand, I think he's going to go ahead and semi-bluff that flop. I don't think he's going to slow play it if he has. If he has a hand like 8, 9, 10 jack or something like that, I think he's going to kick on and bet. So I would be thinking at that point that he probably missed the flop or only had an overpair to the flop. I think with ace with diamonds, in fact, actually he'd probably be happy to bet that flop as well. Not necessarily though. But anyway, the turns came at 7, and our guy J Cage has decided that's a good card to try and bluff the pot. I wouldn't be convinced it is. I think he's probably going to call us there with aces, with position, and just make his mind up again on the river. So I think it's a spot where you're going to have to fire 2 barrels to have any chance of winning. And I think I'd have been inclined just to check the turn and hope to get a free card to show to see the river. Still got a chance of spiking a jack or a king, which would make it a very strong hand, obviously. And there's also a chance that our kings are winning at the minute. So yeah, I think I'd be just trying to show the hand down quite cheaply. We've been called anyway, and the river comes to 3 of diamonds. So now we have to decide whether to give this pot up or whether to fire a second bullet. Our guy J Cage decides just to give it up and check. And at this point, I'd be expecting our opponent just to check behind us. I wouldn't have thought that he had I wouldn't have thought the 3 of diamonds improved him. I'm kind of thinking that he has just the ace, and he's going to be happy to show it down on that river. I would have thought if he had aces and diamonds, it'd be a very good chance he'd bet the flop. Especially because he could be a little bit tilty since he just lost a big pot to us very recently. So this had me really confused here on the river. We checked him and he bets around about half the pot, which really looks like a value bet, but I'm not sure. I just wouldn't really expect him to value bet that river with any of the hands that he could have. He could have aces with diamonds, and maybe he wants to value bet or not flushing the river. But some people would just be happy to check it down there on a paired board. And of course, if he has ace, then there's absolutely ace with no flush draw. There's absolutely no reason at all for him to bet that river. So this really confused me. Having said that, I don't really think we can call here, even though I'm not too sure what's going on. Our guy J Cage arrives at the same conclusion as me. So I'm really none the wiser after that hand. I'd almost been tempted to call there just to see what our opponent had, because it is quite an interesting hand. Over here on table 4, pretty nice 30 hand again, double paired, kings and sevens. 4, 5, 6, 7 on the turn with 3 clubs. And while we've got top set, yeah, we have to assume we're behind at this point. Most people would probably call with top set here. We're getting 2 to 1 pot odds, and of course we've got 10 outs, assuming all our outs are live, which they almost certainly are. So, really, if it's an all-in situation and there's not going to be any more betting on the river, you want to be getting odds of about 4, 4.5 to 1. 3 or 3.5 to 1. To make it okay to call with the set. But there are other factors to consider. It's not out of the question that he could just be firing out a bluff there. There is a chance our 3 sevens are ahead, and we've got position. He has to act first in the river. So if he is firing out a bluff, then there's a good chance he'll give up on the river, and we'll not have to put any more in the pot. And also, even though we're only getting 2 to 1, and which isn't nearly enough really to call, there are some implied odds. We've raised pre-flop, and that's not the sort of flop that's supposed to suit a pre-flop raiser. So he's probably not going to put us on top set here. So there actually is a chance we could get some more money on the river if the board pairs. So I don't think there'd been anything wrong with calling here, even though you're not technically getting the correct price just with the money that's in the middle. Our guy decides to pass though, and I don't know. I do kind of understand that, and maybe it boils down to how well you know your opponent as well. If he's a strong player or a tight player and not likely to pay us off in the river, then it does make sense to pass there. And if you're pretty sure that he has if you are beat at that point as well, of course, if you know he's not the sort of guy that's going to bluff very often. But I still think I would have, especially with position, I would have pilled off a river there, hoped the board paired, or hoped that he was bluffing and didn't fire again on the river. And speaking of sets, over here on table 3, we flop top set again. And again, check fold. I think too many people do get carried away with top set. It's not some people just, they can't pass top set if there's a straight in the board, even if they know the other guy has a straight, they're still going to call to try and outdraw him. And that doesn't make sense, because at the end of the day, you're probably not getting the correct pot odds to call. And in this situation again, we've only got 7 outs if we're behind, and we're of course we're not getting the pot odds to call. But we can't be certain we're behind here. Our opponent's raised from the button. We've checked it. It could be a continuation bet with a lot of hands. Okay, he may have a flush. It could easily be a continuation betting with a lone ace, or maybe he's just missed completely, and he's just taking a stab at the pot. So I would definitely be calling here with 3 tens. If we're behind, we still do have 7 cards we can hit to compare the board, and we may get to see the river cheaply as well. And obviously we're going to pick up some more outs in the turn if the board doesn't pair. We're going to have some more outs because the turn card can pair again on the river as well. So I'd definitely be liking to see him call $3 here. Let's see how our opponent acts in the turn. I don't think you can be confident enough that you're losing that hand to make the pass correct. Okay, this next hand I've just wandered forward to is on table 1. We're first into the pot. We've made a raise with ace 8, 8, 9, with no clubs, and we've been called by the guy on the button. I think the other 2 guys passed, did they? Yeah, they do. Okay, we've got an ace 10 2 flop with a couple of diamonds. It's not a great flop for us. Okay, we do have top pair, but if we bet and we get any sort of resistance, then we're either going to be losing the better hand, or it's going to be a situation where we're up against a draw. And we could be up against a draw and a better hand, not diamonds with an ace and a higher kicker. So it's not really a very good flop for us. But at the same time, I think it's correct to go ahead and continuation bet here. We've raised pre-flop, and that is a good flop for a pre-flop raiser. So I think we have to ask the question first rather than check fold and leave ourselves open to being bluffed a lot of the time. So yeah, we fire out a pot size bet here. Well, slightly less than the pot, I think 350. And I'm just going to pause it here, because the thing I want you to look at is the time it takes for the other guy to call. It's an insta call, like he calls in less than a second here. I'm just going to hit play again to show you. That's as quick as you can be, really. That's you don't really have any physical tells in online poker, but you can get tells sometimes from the speed that people act, and a really quick call like that tells me a lot about his hand. It tells me that he doesn't have a very strong hand. If he has a set or top two pair or even like top pair and enough flush draw and a hand like ace king queen or ace king jack or something like that, these are all examples of strong hands. And if he does have a hand like that, then he's going to take a little bit longer in the flop. I'm not saying that he's definitely going to raise. He may decide just to call, but he's certainly going to have to think about it. With a very strong hand, even if he does decide he wants to slow play it, he's going to let his timer run down a little bit and try and feign weakness, hoping that we fire again on the turn. So that speed of a call tells me that he has a hand that he doesn't quite want to fold it, but he wants to slow down the action, so he calls immediately to kind of slow us down on the turn. And I think that's a mistake a lot of novice players make. They call really quickly to try and signal strength, when in fact that it really kind of signals the opposite, if you ask me. Obviously I'm generalizing here, but I think more often than not that's going to be the case. He's calling as quickly as he can because he wants to stop the action on the turn. He wants to see a cheap river. I would say that he must have some kind of hand to call us with. Maybe he does have an ace, and he's not quite prepared to fold it yet, but he doesn't really like it that much either. Or maybe he has a small flush draw or something like that. He has to have some kind of hand, but he can't really have a strong hand. And that's why whenever this 10 comes on the turn, I think it's a great card to fire a second barrel with. He can't really have ace 10. I don't think ace 10. He definitely has to think about what he's going to do on the flop. It's not going to be an insta call like that, I don't think, or at least it shouldn't be, in my opinion. So I think that 10's a very good card for us to bluff. He could have a 10 in his hand. He could have called us with a flush draw maybe and a random 10, in which case he's going to call us in the turn, I think, as well. He is going to be a little bit worried about if it does have an ace or ace 10, but I still think he's definitely going to call on the turn if he has a 10 in his hand. But like I said, it's unlikely. It's much more likely that he had some kind of bad flush draw, or maybe just top pair or something like that. So I definitely think this is a good card to fire a second bluff, and that's what we do. That's what J Case decides to do. That's a reasonable size of a bet, 750. I don't think you really need to bet anymore. If he does have a 10, well then he's going to call a pot size bet. So we've saved ourselves a little bit of money by betting 750. And if he doesn't have a 10, which he probably doesn't, then he's going to pass for 750 as well. It accomplishes the same thing. So yeah, I really like the way he played that hand there. I don't know if his thinking was the same as mine, about the speed of the call on the flop. But that's something you should look out for. And like as I said before, but a really quick call like that is usually someone trying to look strong by calling quick. But in most cases it's exactly the opposite. It's some kind of a hand. It's usually like a bad drawing hand or a hand that they think might be ahead but they're not sure about, and they want to try and get a bit of strength to kind of slow the action down. So that's something you can take advantage of. And I really like the way we played that hand. I like the second barrel there in the turn. Okay, we came to the end of the footies there, so this video is going to be a little bit shorter than the ones that I've made before. But just at the end of the video now, I just wanted to come back and talk a little bit more about a situation that came up earlier on in the video, and that was in this hand here on table 4, and the hand directly after it on table 3. Well, both times we passed top set. I kind of said at the time that I didn't really agree with the passes. Although I should say as well that I think it's a good sign that our player here is good enough to pass top set, because so many novice players are just bad players. So many of them they just are not capable of passing sets, certainly not until the river, especially top set. Either they have no idea about pot odds, or maybe sometimes they do have an idea about pot odds, but they don't care anyway. They're just too inclined to gamble. So it's a good sign that our guy does know that you can pass top set. And sometimes you should pass top set. But having said that, I don't think these situations were times that he should have passed top set. I don't think. Every situation is different and has to kind of be judged separately. But the important things to consider when you're deciding whether or not to call with a set, or the pot odds. first of all. Okay, if your opponent bets the pot, then you're getting 2 to 1 to fill up and make a full house. Obviously, on the flop here, we've only, well, actually, on the flop we've only got 7 outs, so I'm just going to wind it forward to the turn because the flop was actually checked here. So in this situation, let's say in theory we knew that our opponent didn't have any of the cards on the flop, and we knew that he definitely had either a straight or a flush. Okay, that would leave. There's 10 cards that are going to pair the board. There's going to be 40 cards left, so that means we want pot odds of 3 to 1. You know, to make it kind of break even. Now, of course, we're only getting 2 to 1, which isn't really enough. But then you have to consider the possibility of some implied odds as well, meaning that if we call $5 and fill up and make a full house on the river, there's a chance we can get paid some more on the river. So you have to think how likely that is. You know, sometimes it's pretty, you know, especially when guys are deep, it's pretty obvious that one guy has a set, and you know, they're not going to get the action if the board pairs on the river. But sometimes it's not so obvious. You know, maybe a situation like if there's a flush draw on the flop and you've got a set and you call the bet on the flop and on the turn, there's a fair chance you might get paid if the board pairs on the river, because your opponent could easily put you in a busted flush draw. And in this situation, I think is a situation where there are some implied odds there. We may get paid a bet on the river if the board pairs. If you look at the way this hand played out, I've already went past this now, but our opponent limp pre-flop. We raised with King 7-7. You know, we've raised pre-flop, indicating that we'll have a big hand. You know, that could be a rundown hand, like, you know, around about the size of 5, 6, 7, 8 or something like that. But it's probably most of the time it's going to be a bigger hand than that. It's going to be, you know, 4 high cards or high pair or something like that. So we've raised pre-flop, indicating that that flop isn't usually going to suit us. We've checked that flop, again indicating weakness, and you know, I think there's a fair chance that because of the way we've acted, there's actually a fair chance our opponent's going to fire out a bluff on the turn, even if he's got no part of it. I think most of the time he will have a hand here, but some of the time he will be bluffing. He'll just be betting because we've shown weakness. So that's kind of one reason why we went to call with top set here, when otherwise we wouldn't. And another reason is that I think there's a chance we could get paid some on the river. You know, I think, like I said, the way we played this hand so far, we've kind of made it look like we don't really have any part of the flop. So there is actually a chance we could get paid off in the river. You know, we only need to get paid another $5. We only need to be sure we're going to get paid another $5. You know, to kind of make it okay to call on the turn there. And I think there's a good chance we could easily squeeze a half pot bet out of it on the end if the board pairs. So, you know, we're taking that into consideration, and what I already mentioned, you know, the fact that there is a slight chance he could be bluffing. He could just be betting because we've kind of indicated that we don't have any part of this. I think those two factors probably make it correct to call in this situation, even though we're only getting kind of 2 to 1 pot odds at the minute. I'll just let it play. The next hand on table 3 is coming up in a second, which is the one where we flop 3 10s on a 10. I think it's a 10-4-3 board or something like that, all diamonds, and we check fold. And again, you know, for the same reasons, I think that's a situation where we should probably call. You know, obviously you don't want to take 2 to 1 about the board pairing, especially since this is on the flop and we only have 7 cards that are going to pair the board. But you know, there's every chance the guy could have a diamond. You know, it's maybe even slightly more likely than not. When I say diamond, sorry, but it's slightly more likely than not that the guy could have flopped a flush and be looking for action. But there's a very good chance as well that it's just a continuation bet with, I don't know, he could have missed the flop completely. Maybe he has a lone king or a lone ace or something, and he's just taking a stab at it, expecting us to pass. So I definitely think we should really be calling the flop there and reevaluating the turn, seeing how he acts. There's also a chance that the board can pair as well. I mean, we've only 7 outs, but it is still the board's going to pair up some of the time. And sometimes as well, maybe he does have a flush, but it's not a nut flush, and if we call on the flop, then he might check the turn and give us another street to complete our full house. So I definitely think that's a situation where we should be calling $3 as well. Okay, well that's about it. I think I'm gonna wrap the video up here, and I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope it's been of some use to you. Okay, good luck for now.